You are mighty.
You're welcome back again to my channel. My name is Ajibola. If you're a returning viewer, I love you. Thank you for sticking by. And if you're a newcomer, you're also very much welcome. So this is the final part of this tutorial. We've made the first part, the second part of the corset, the pattern drafting of the corset. That's what the first and the second part is all about. But this last part will be all about the lace, how to draft the pattern and how to cut and sew the lace. Yes, guys. The only thing that is different from this look is that the lace dress is that this one has a particular half cut and my own does not have half cut. It's a complete dress without waist dart, without bust dart, and without the shoulder dart. And it's giving snatch, it's giving shape. Yes. So I'm going to teach you how to draft a dress without that, and you will still be able to achieve a good fit. So if this is what you will love to learn, kindly subscribe, kindly get a cup of juice, tea, water, or whatever you drink and enjoy. Do not forget to like as well. Do not forget to share these videos to your friends. So I am going to start from that starting line downwards to mark 10 inches, and that will be my bust line. That is from your shoulder to the nipple of your bust, where your bust is. So my case, it's 10 inches. I'm now going to use my ruler to rule it out. Now, after doing that, I'm going to also come down towards the waist to mark my shoulder to my waist, and that is 16 in my own case, and I'm going to roll it out with my ruler this way. I'm just labeling that as my BL, bust line, waistline. Now from the waistline downwards, I'm going to mark 8 inches, and that will be my hip line. And I'm also going to use my ruler to rule it out. Labeling that as my hip line. And so on the starting line, which also serves as the shoulder line, I'm going to mark out my shoulder measurement divided by 2, and I'm going to replicate that measurement on my bust line. I'm going to also use my ruler to connect those 2 points together like this. So moving to the shoulder line from the center front, I'm going to measure inwards 3 inches, which will serve as my neck width, the neckline width. And I'm also going to come down from the shoulder line by 3 inches, which also marks my neck depth. Using the curve part of my ruler, I'm going to connect the 2 points together with a curve to create a basic neckline like this. After doing that, I'm going to come down by 1 inch from my shoulder line, and I'm going to connect that point to the neck width to create my shoulder slant this way. So after doing that, I'm going to come downwards from that 1 inch shoulder slant and measure out my chest line measurement, which is gotten by dividing your bust circumference by 6, then adding 1.5 inches to it. So I'm just going to measure the total measurement from the starting point and replicate it on the other side in order for me to be able to draw a straight line this way. And now we have our chest line. just labeling that as CL. And so from the center fold of my paper, I'm going to go inwards by 4 inches. This 4 inches is my bust span divided by 2. That is my nipple to nipple divided by 2. And that is what I am putting at all the lines in order to draw a straight line. This straight line is where our dart is going to be. So on the waistline, I'm going to go in by ½ inch on both sides of the bust span line. And from the bust line, I'm going to come downwards by 1 inch this way. And also on the waistline, I'm going to go upwards by 2 inches like this. Now with my ruler, I'm going to connect the dots together to create a diamond dart like this. So after doing that, I'm going to mark from my starting point, my shoulder to my above knee measurement. That is about 3 to 4 inches above your knee. That is what you are going to mark there. And I'm going to rule a line to create the above knee line. So right now I'm going to be taking the round body measurements. I'll be starting at the chest line to measure my bust circumference divided by 4, which I have already marked out. And for the waist as well, I'm going to put my waist measurement divided by 4, and I'm going to go ahead to add my darts allowance there like this. So mind you guys, I will not be adding sewing allowance to my pattern because of my paper insufficiency. And on the hip as well, I'm going to divide my hip into 4 and minus 1 inch. So whatever I get from the division of my hip by 4, I'm going to minus 1 inch away. And also on my above knee line, I'm going to replicate that measurement at the hip there, and I'll be going in by 1 inch. This is to make the hip a little bit curved. So I'm going to connect the points together using my ruler this way, and I'll be using the slightest curve area of my ruler to connect the waist to the waist to the hip, yes. And I'm going to use the straight parts to connect the hip to the above knee this way. And finally, I'll be connecting it downwards. So this paper right here is more than half of the total measurement of the gown. So I added the rest of the length to my fabric. So right now it's time to do the armhole of our front pattern. So right now from the shoulder slant to the chest line, I'm going to find the midpoint and I'm going to mark. Then from there I'm coming inwards by ½ inch. So using my ruler, I'm going to connect that point to the other point there, using my curve like this. Then I will connect the rest with my straight ruler this way, and the curve, armhole curve, is ready. So right now, remember I said that the dress is dartless. So right now, what I'm going to do is to close up the waist dart this way. I'm going to close it up this way, making sure that I'm not taking excess and I'm not taking lesser. I'm taking the exact that allowance, and I'm going to tape it. So this is the way to eliminate your dart. If you don't want a dart on your dress, this is the way you can eliminate it, and the outcome will still look like you added a dart to it. It's still going to look snatchy. So right now I'm going to tape it. So to construct the back pattern for the dress, I'm going to go inward from that line I use in demarcating the front from the back. I'm going to go inward by 3 inches this way, and I'm going to connect with a straight line. And so from the new line, that is the second line, I'm going to go inwards to mark the shoulder measurement divided by 2 like this. And I'm going to duplicate the same measurement on my chest line like this as well. I'm now going to use my straight ruler to connect the 2 points together. And so from the second line, I'll be going inwards by 3 inches for my neck width this way. And on that line, I'll also be coming down by 1 inch for the neck depth for the back this way. And I'll be connecting the 2 points together with my curve ruler. So from the second line, we're going to go in by 4 inches, our bust span divided by 2. And I'm going to be duplicating that measurement on all lines so that I'll be able to connect them with a straight line this way. And so I'm just going to clean off that bust line because we're not going to need it for the back pattern of the dress because your bust is not located at the back. And again, guys, please ignore the marker stain on the paper. So what I'm going to do next is to create the dart for the back, and on that waistline at the bust span line, I'm going to go on both sides by ½ inch this way, and from my hip line above, I'm going to mark 2 inches. So what I'm going to do next is to use my ruler to connect those points together to create our waist dart for the back. So I'm going to connect one side of the dart to the waistline, this chest line this way, then the other side to the chest line this way. Then I'll be taking it like this. I'll be placing my ruler this way and connect it to the waistline, and I'll do that for the other side. And we have successfully created our waist dart for the back pattern. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to impute our bust measurement divided by 4. I'm going to put it down there. And as well, I'm going to put the waist measurement divided by 4 plus the dart allowance, that is 1 inch. Remember, we took ½ inch on both sides to make it 1 inch. So I'm going to put my waist circumference divided by 4 measurement plus that 1 inch. I'm going to be adding it back this way. So the next thing I'm to do is to put my hip circumference divided by 4 minus 1 inch on the hip line, and I'm going to connect all the points together like this, and I'm going to use the slightest curve area of my ruler to connect the waist to the hip like this. And so I'll be putting the same measurements I used for my hip circumference there, and I'll be coming inward by 1 inch like that. So I'm going to be connecting it with my ruler to the above knee line like this. And after connecting both ends together, I'll be using my ruler to draw a straight line down towards the hem. And we are done with the side of the back, and it remains the zipper area of it. So you remember the 1 inch we took away from our hip circumference divided by 4. I'm going to be adding that 1 inch back on the hip line. This is to draw out the contour of our butt area. So from that hip line there, I'll be coming downwards by 8 inches this way. So I'm going to go inward on the waistline by half inch like this, and I'm going to connect it to the chest line, and then to the 1 inch, and finally to the 8 inches downwards. So with the ruler, I'm going to rule a slanted line like this, and then I'll connect from the waistline to that 1 inch like this, and from there I'm going to connect it down to that 8 inches. So by this we have successfully drawn the shape of our butt. So I'm just going to curve it out at that edge so that it's not going to have a funny look when we sew the pieces together. So after doing this, it is time to add our zipper allowance. So I'm going to be using 1.5 inch for our zipper allowance. So I'll be measuring it from the new contour line. So I'm going to start from the top here, 1.5, 1.5 again, 1.5. You can see where I'm placing my tape measure on the contour line. 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, then finally 1.5. So I am going to connect the dots with my ruler. So what I'm going to do next now is to fold the waist that's like this, just as we did for the front pattern. I am not taking lesser than what I've allocated or more than what I've allocated. I'm just going to take the exact allocation of my waist that's this way, and I'm going to tape it with my cello tape. After taping it, I'm going to come down from my shoulder line there by 1 inch and connect it with the neck width to create our shoulder slant. And then I am going to find the midpoint of my armhole line from the shoulder slant there. I'm going to fold my tape measure into two this way and mark the midpoint. And then from the chest line measurement there, I'm going to connect it to the mid of my armhole line to create a curve, and that's we have formed our armhole for the back. So this is how it looks like. This is how the front and the back pattern of our dress look like. And remember that this is not the total length of the dress. I'm going to be adding the rest of the length when I'm about to cut it on the fabric. And also remember that we did not add any sewing allowance to this, so I'll be adding that also to the lace fabric. So I'm going to go ahead to cut out this pattern. So here is my beautiful white lace laid on a clean ground, and we will not be folding this way because of the length of the fabric. Instead, we'll be folding the other way. We won't be folding this way, not this way, but the other way, lengthwise. So this is the right way to fold the fabric in order to accommodate the full length of our dress. And make sure that when you're folding your fabrics, the wrong side is facing you upward. And then before placing my pattern on the fabric, I will make sure that I remove that edge of the lace because we're going to be needing it for the bottom part of our dress. So I'll be using my soldering iron, which is already very hot here, to remove it out neatly. So this is the trimming already neatly removed with my soldering iron. I'm going to keep that aside because we'll be needing it for the hem of the dress. Now I'm just going to place my pattern on my lace fabric this way. This is the front pattern. I'm going to pin it with my pins and I'm going to add the rest of the hem to it with the sewing allowance of ½ inch. Then I'm going to be adding the sewing allowance at the side as well. Remember, we did not add any allowance, sewing allowance to it on the pattern. So this is what I'm just doing basically. And so after doing that, I'm going to cut it out like this. I actually made use of a chalk, color chalk, like I think it was pink, to draft out this, but you will bear with me. I think the color of the fabric is not making it to show, and it's quite better because I wouldn't want it to get stained. So after cutting the front out, I'm going to cut the back as well, like this. I'm placing the fabric on a fold and I'm going to pin it to my fabric this way and cut it out after marking out my sewing allowance. So I'm going to cut it out as well like this. So what I'm going to do next is to cut that keyhole that you see at the back of the gown. So I didn't do that on the pattern because I didn't want the pattern to be useless, because I would also use it for further projects. So right now I'm just going from the neckline of the back downwards by 2 inches, and from that 2 inches I'm marking extra 8 inches there. So I'm just going to draft a small curve like this. You can see the way my hand is going. I'm just going to draft it to that point. You can do a freehand or you can make use of your curve ruler. So do not make the curve too big if you want a moderate size keyhole, because you're still going to hem the edges in. You're going to take it in with about ½ inch. So just make it like that. And right now I'm going to cut it off to this side. You can see. So you're going to cut it this way. It's just like a letter C. So from the center back there, you can just go inward by ½ inch and draw out your curve. Then cut it out this way. So I'm just going to measure the armhole this way with my tape measure in order to draft out the sleeves. So after doing that, it's time to draft the sleeve of our dress, and make sure that your paper is on a fold so that you'll be able to cut the front and the back sleeve together. But in my case, I do not have sufficient paper, so I'm just going to cut in half. So if you have a full paper, just fold your paper this way, fold it in half, and do what I'm about to do now. So after drawing my starting line, from my starting line downwards, I'm going to draw out my sleeve cap. And for me to get my sleeve cap, you're going to divide your bust circumference into 12. That is, if it's 38, 38 divided by 12 plus 1 inch. So whatever you get, you are going to mark it downwards from your starting line and rule a straight line this way. I hope you are getting my point. So in order to get your sleeve cap, I repeat again, that is the height of the cap of your sleeve. You have to divide your bust circumference by 12, then plus 1 inch. So after doing that now, I'm going to divide my circumference of my sleeve. That is the round sleeve, round arm divided by 2. And I'm going to add 2 inches allowance to it. And so after doing that, I'm now going to mark the length of my sleeve. So this paper is accurately the length of my sleeve. I'm now going to draw a line this way, diagonal line from the top here of the top edge of this sleeve down to the arm circumference point there. After doing that, I'm going to get the midpoint of that line by measuring it with my tape measure this way and then folding my tape measure into two like this. And I'm going to mark that point there. So that is the half of that line, the midpoint of the line. So now I'm going to get the midpoint of the first half. I'm going to measure from there to there, from here to this place to get the midpoint. This way, and I'm going to mark it. And I'm also going to get the midpoint of the second half this way. And I'm going to mark it. So after doing that, we have 3 points, 3 equal points on that line. So right now, from the midpoint there, I'm going to go upwards by ½ inch, like this. So I'm going to connect the ½ inch this way so you can see what I'm doing. And from the down part of it there, I'm going to come down by ½ inch. And this front part of it, I'm going to go up by ¼ inch. And I'm going to mark it this way. So I'm going to connect the sleeve cap like this to draw out the back of our sleeves. Just watch me. I'm going to place the deepest part of my curve like this from that midpoint. I'm going to connect it to the edge like this. And then with my straight ruler, I'm going to connect the rest from that midpoint directly to the ending part of it this way. So this is the back curve of our sleeve. So after drafting the curve for the back armhole, it's time to draft that of the front. So we are going to connect the 3 intersections together in a way with a curve. So I'm going to start from the end there, and I'm going to take it upwards towards it, making sure that it touches all 3 intersections like this. So here I'm just going to smoothen out that area with my curve to make it more curved. So you can see the back here, and you can see the front, the way they all curved out to be. So that is how to draft both the back and the front. So this is the front. You see how the curve went down, glided through. So right now I'm just going to measure out the front curve to make sure that it's accurate with what I measured on my sleeve. And you can see for the back as well, they are both accurate. So right now I'm just going to put in the circumference of my wrist divided by 2. I'm going to measure it there like this and mark it, and I'm going to add an allowance to it of 2 inches. So I'm just drafting a basic sleeve for you guys to see. So right now I'm just going to connect it from that point to the wrist. So I'm going to use this pattern in cutting out the funnel sleeves on my fabric. So I'm going to cut it through this way, and I'll be cutting the back curve first. I will not be cutting the front curve of the sleeve. I'm going to be cutting the back curve of the sleeve first. So remember, your paper should be on a fold, and when it's on a fold, you cut it this way first. You cut out the back curve first. So before cutting out the back curve, I'm going to place the paper, the pattern, on another paper this way in order to cut out the back curve. So I'm just going to cut it out this way. And so after cutting exactly the sleeve with the back curve, I'm going to keep one aside, and I'm going to cut out the front curve out on the original pattern. So this is how our sleeve is looking, it's going to look like. So if you have a full paper, you don't have to go through the stress of cutting separately. You just need to fold it into two. So right now I'm just labeling them as my front and my back. And right now I am folding my fabric, my lace, into two, making sure that the wrong side is facing me, and making sure that the decorative part of the sleeve, the lace I mean, is downward, because that will be the hem of our sleeves. And I folded it again so that I can cut both the right and the left sleeves together. So I'll be placing one of my sleeve pattern this way on my fabric like this. And I will be measuring the height of the length of the sleeve plus the sewing allowance. So I'm going to place my back sleeve pattern on the folded part of the fabric this way from that marked place, and I'm going to pin it to my fabric. So with my scissors, I'm going to cut out that length of fabric first. And I'll go ahead to cut out the cap of the sleeve. So after cutting out the cap of the sleeve, I'm going to notch the center this way, and I'm going to open it up. After opening the fabric up like this, I'm going to place my front pattern of the sleeve on the fabric so that I can be able to cut out its curve. But before that, I'm going to mark the midpoint of my fabric like this with a straight ruler. this way, and I'm going to place it on like this at that midpoint. So I'm going to place it like this, making sure that the sleeve is touching the top edge. The pattern is touching the top edge of the sleeve like this. And from the edge of the paper, I'm going to mark ½ inch upward like this. This is the sewing allowance. So I'm just going to draw it out like this. Then I'm going to cut it out. So now we have our front curve already cut out on the sleeve, and the back is on the other hand. So this is it. So make sure you indicate the front of the sleeve so that when you're attaching it, you will not be confused. So it's time to draft the funnel design of the sleeve. So I'm just going to put my sleeve pattern on my fabric this way as a guideline, and I'm going to start drawing it straight down like this, and around the elbow area of the sleeve I'm going to extend it. I'm just going to pin it up, pin it down, then I'm going to take it again like this, and around the elbow area I'm going to extend it this way like a fish shape like this, and I'll extend it to the end of the lace like that. So this is how it looks like a fish tail. That is how you derive your funnel sleeve. And here are the pieces already cut out from the pattern we created for this dress. So it's time to sew. So for the sewing part, I've laid down my front pattern, right side facing up, and I'm going to place my back patterns on it, joining them at the shoulder, right side facing right side. So I'm going to pin them together so that they don't move while stitching, and I'm going to put the other side of the back on the shoulder of the front this way. I'm going to be attaching them shoulder to shoulder this way, and I'm going to take it to my sewing machine to sew the shoulder using my sewing allowance. So after sewing both shoulders together, it's going to look like this. So it is time to attach the sleeves to the armhole of the dress. So I'm going to put that part I notched on the sleeve at the joining of the shoulders of the front and back patterns of the dress, pieces of the dress. So I'm going to pin it down this way. Remember, right side facing right side. Then I'm going to pin them according to the curve this way. And again, take note that the front side curve of your sleeve should be on the front side of your front pattern. So you have to pin it like this. And I'm going to take it all to the other side of the back, aligning both the back curve of the sleeve and the back armhole. So the front curve of your sleeve should be at the front armhole, and the back curve of your sleeve should be at the back armhole. So I'm going to pin it this way like this, and do that for the other side, and take it to my sewing machine to sew. after joining my sleeves together, the next thing to do is to install my zipper, and I'm starting from this point, not from the neckline. And right now I'm going to be using my zipper as a guide to know where to start my stitching from. And I'm going to place my zipper like this and mark 1.5 inch above from the bottom of the zipper like this, and I'm going to mark that side.
So I'm going to mark that end like this with my pin, and right now I'm going to measure from the end of the dress, the bottom of the dress, upward, my slit height plus my sewing, that is my hemming allowance. So if you want your slit height to be 10 inches, you're going to be adding your hemming allowance to it. So in my case, I used 10 inches and I added 2 inches of my hemming allowance there, making 12, and I marked it like this with my pin. So what we're left there, I'm going to be running a stitch like that from that end to the other end using my zipper allowance. Then after doing that, I'm going to be adding my zipper to the dress. And also I'm going to be hemming that curve, that keyhole we created at the back design. I'm going to be hemming it with 1/2 inch like this. I'm just going to roll it like this and hem it down, and I'm also going to do that for the other side before installing my zip and sewing that slit side.
So when that is done, it's time to shape the old dress, and I have laid them like this neatly on top of themselves, wrong side facing me. And right now I just measured from my shoulder to my waist, and I'm going to be putting in the measurement divided by 4 on both sides this way. And also for the bust circumference measurement, I'm going to be taking it on the armhole area, the armpit area like this. I'm going to be putting the bust circumference divided by 4 measurements like this. As you can see that I'm taking both measurements on both sides so that they can be equal. Then from the waist downward, I'm marking my hip depth this way, and I'm also going to put the hip circumference measurement divided by 4. I'll put it from the midpoint and mark on one side, and do that for the other side as well. So I'm just going to connect it with my chalk this way. So I'm just going to go straight down with my chalk. I'm going to just draw a straight line from the hip measurement down like this. I'm going to measure it downwards like this. So when that is done, the next thing I'm doing is to divide my arm circumference by 2, and I'm going to put the measurement on the sleeve area this way, and I'm going to connect it from that funnel side upwards towards that measurement, and I'm going to connect it to the bust measurement. I'm doing it for the other side. I'm going to put my circumference of my arm measurement there, and I'm going to connect it like this towards the end of the sleeve. And we are done shaping. It's time to take to the machine to sew them together and hem it. So right now for the color of the dress, I'm doing this at the last stage because I needed to join the shoulders together. I'm just drawing a random straight line on a piece of paper, and I'm going to find the midpoint of that line like this, and I'm going to mark it like this. So I'm going to take a measurement, the measurement of my neckline, but first I'm going to fold the rest of the opening at the back like this and pin it down. Then I'm going to measure from that point to the shoulder of the back like this. So whatever I get there, I'm going to put the exact measurement from that midpoint and mark it. So I'm going to label that as my back. Then for the front, I'm going to just
fold it like this, making sure that both shoulders are joining each other like this. And I'm going to take that measurement from that shoulder to the center fold, the neckline center fold like this. I'm going to mark it. Please make sure your uh, measurement is correct, and I'm going to get that measurement. So whatever I get, I'm going to put it on the other end from the midpoint there, and I'm going to mark it out this way. So after doing that, I'm going to go up there on the front neckline there by ½ inch. Yes, by ½ inch, and I'm going to use the slightest curve of my ruler to connect it to the midpoint this way. And for the back, I'm going up by ½ inch too, like this, and I'm going to connect it like this to the midpoint. Now I'm going to go upward by the width of the neckline. I'm using 1.5 inches. You can use 2 if you want, depending on how wide you want it to be. So I'm just going to measure it from that line, the new line, 1.5 inch, 1.5 inch, all through to the back, like this. So when that is done, I'm going to connect it with a straight line, like this. And for the front, I'm not going to make a straight line. I'm going to make it a little bit diagonal inward, like this, instead of a straight line. So I'm just showing you that you draw a straight line first, then you go inward like this. So right now I'm going to use my curve to connect it, to connect all those points together to create the collar. So you can see that it's quite easy to draft your collar, and this is the best way to draft your collar so that it sits on your neckline. You don't have a collar that is gaping. So I'm just labeling that as my front, and I'm going to cut it out. So when that is done, I'm going to take a piece of my fabric and fold it into two. I'm going to place my pattern on the center fold of my fabric, the front side of the pattern. I'll make sure that it's aligning with the center fold like this, and I'm going to cut not exactly the pattern, but I'm going to be adding 1/4 inch for my sewing allowance like this, and I'm going to cut it this way. Make sure that the front of your pattern is on the center fold and it's touching the edge. Both edges are touching together. So I've cut one part, and I'm going to cut another piece for my lining. So after cutting two pieces, I'm going to open them up like this and place them right side. So as you can see, I marked the top part of the neckline, and I'm placing the other parts right side facing right side. Make sure that you are not doing it the other way around. So I'm going to stitch the top parts like this. I will start from the end upwards towards the top part of the neckline and go down there. So I'm going to take it to my machine to sew. So right now, the only way I'm going to sew it is like this. I'm going to fold one of the collar like this at the bottom inward, folding exactly the sewing allowance, and I'm going to start sewing like this. I'll drop in my needle, raise the footer up, and arrange it well and place it back. I'm going to continue my sewing like this, like this. So when you finish sewing the top part like this and you've turned it right side out, the part you did not sew, you did not fold, will be the part that will be attached to the neckline this way. So right now I'm almost done pinning it to my neckline neatly. So you can see our neckline already done. And I'm going to stitch it together. So when that is done, I'm just going to fold my collar like this into two to give it a final stitching. So I'm going to start by folding it in, tucking in the seam that we've created by joining the collar and the neckline together. So I'm going to use the other part of the collar to cover it up like this, tucking that part in, the seam in, and I'm going to sew very close to the fold. After that is done, this is the final part of the dress where we create the slits of our dress. So I'm just going to fold in this way my allowance I kept for the slit, that is the zipper allowance. I'm just going to fold it and pin it in place using my pins, and I'm going to stitch it all through from one end to the other end. So lastly, it's time to place the embroidery we removed with our soldering iron at the hem of the dress. So I'm just going to fold in the edge this way, about ½ inch. I'm just going to fold it this way and place it on top of the hem of the dress, starting from one side of the slit. I'm going to run a straight stitch all through to the other end of the slit of the dress. We've come to the end of this tutorial. I hope you had fun learning and watching. If you have any question, kindly drop in the comment section and I'll attend to them as soon as I see them. Thank you so much for sticking by, for watching this tutorial. It was quite a handful, but I'm glad we made it through. Can you see how beautiful it is? If you're going to try this style, kindly